Dr. Das, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Hello, sir. Am I audible to you?
Yes, Dr. Das and Dr. Frank Carter.
Japan. Yes, he's joining us from Japan. Welcome for yes.
I'm sorry, I'm not there to welcome you, receive you in person. And so I'm sorry that I'm with my daughter here in Japan, in Tokyo.
Much more important.
But I thought I should not miss seeing you and talking to you, and also learning all that work that you are doing, what we can do together with Amity University, Amity Group of Universities, and also Dr. Kamar Rahman is a great scientist, which Amity is very proud to have in the area of environmental health, and she has been also instrumental in getting you over here. And thank you, Dr. Kamar Rahman, that you joined us. And Dr. Das is a renowned cancer biologist, and your area is actually, Dr. Frank, here, it's in the area of cancer. So also the asbestos, what you have worked, you have done, I have read about it. And the legislation which our country has made is also based on this, Dr. Kamar Rahman's work that she has done in this area. So I'm so happy that you are here, and I won't take much time. I want to listen to you fully. And also, what we need to do is this founder president, Dr. Ashok Chauhan, who has created this whole Amity universe, he is very keen that we should contribute significantly in the field of environment and health. And you have contributed immensely in this area. So I look forward to work with you and Amity University. We have 12 universities in India, 18 campuses abroad, 28 schools we have, and we have more than 200,000 students, 800,000 alumni, and we have a large number of publications, patents. So we would like to see how we can synergize your efforts. And because, the founder president, Dr. Chauhan, always says, 3 missions are very important: mission connect, mission synergy, and mission outcome. So we are looking forward to connect with you today and also foster a close friendship, collaboration, and also synergize your efforts and want to contribute to your mission on the environmental health. And also this should lead to a fruitful outcome for both Amity universities as well as to your institution. So with this, I welcome you all once again, and all my brilliant faculties have been identified for interactions with you. And Dr. Das himself is a great scientist, father of HPV in the country, the human papilloma virus, which he worked in Germany. So he is here today to look at how do we connect with you in cancer, which is a domain in which Amity University has got a very strong vertical. So with this brief, I'll interject whenever it's required. But otherwise, on behalf of founder president, Dr. Ashok Chauhan ji, and also the Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan ji, and all members of Amity fraternity, and many of them are there, the experts in your field. I welcome you, Dr. Frank, and we look forward to look at what are the possibilities which we can launch immediately, and maybe sometime in midterms what we can do together. So welcome to India and welcome to Amity University. Now over to you, Dr. Gopal Bhushan. Thank you for you. You have made all the efforts to get him over here. And so I'm so grateful to Dr. Gopal Bhushan, my Deputy Director General, and also Dr. Goodwill Coker, who has organized, coordinated the whole event, Dr. Goodwill. And you have brought the brilliant people to interact with Dr. Frank. And so we will eagerly looking forward to the work with you. Thank you so much. And over to you, Gopal. Please go ahead as planned.
Very good morning to one and all, and thank you very much, Dr. Selvamurthy, joined from Japan and to give introductory remarks. Thank you so much. And most respected Honorable Founder President, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, who is a great visionary and who is the founder of this education empire, Amity Education Foundation and Amity Universe. And our honorable, most dynamic chancellors, I would say, Dr. Atul Chauhan ji and Dr. Asim Chauhan, of the chancellor of university, the Gurgaon, the Savit University, now and other universities. So you have already known that as from Dr. Sulamurthy's talk that it's a huge university and is the one of the top private university, having 12 universities in the country, and there are many are upcoming. I am taking not counting them. So and 17 campuses abroad and so many students that more than 2 lakhs with 200,000 students and 700,000 alumni and 28 schools also, Amity International Schools. So, and our Honorable Vice Chancellor of this university, Professor Dr. Balvinder Shukla, and the most important is today's guest, who will be delivering lecture to us and also look for active collaboration with us is Professor Frank Arthur, Professor of Environmental and Occupational Health, School of Public Health, Drexel University, USA. So along with that, also we have this is with the initiative of none other than our Dr. Sarvamurthy and Professor Kamar Rahman. He is a good friend of Amity University. You have seen her many a times here, accompanying with a lot of foreigners and even otherwise. Many of the occasion, she is here and today, and she is a distinguished professor and dean of research and principal advisor to our Honorable Founder President for international lands, because most of the time she is in the US and other places. So visiting professor of Rostock University, Germany, research professor of University of Louisiana, USA, adjunct professor of Drexel University, Philadelphia, USA, European Union's external advisor at nanosafety. So many other things she is associated. Particularly, she is an excellent researcher and scientist. And with this is also she is equally active and very energetic, and we just discussed just now. And because some of the field of the molecular epidemiology and cancer and environment and occupational health very much, I am also associated and I had a lot of work on this field. That's why it was nice to have her here. So, so before I go out the other things that I introduce each can introduce just for a minute. So before that, I will introduce our chief guest today, Dr. Frank, who is an MD from Mount Sinai School of Medicine of the University of New York, and PhD from in biomedical sciences from City University of New York, the Mount Sinai Medical Center, and BA from anthropology from the State University of New York, Buffalo, and his major research activities include studying occupational lung diseases such as the factor is asbestosis. It is a very well-known factor that causes the lung cancer, asbestosis and silicosis, and occupational cancer, that occupational exposure in the dye industry and many places. Particularly, it is very important for India that especially those related to the asbestos exposure and has worked in the agriculture safety because of the pesticides and all. So, and health. He is distinguished expert in the cancer research, environmental exposures, global health, and occupational health, public health, and agriculture safety and health. Toxicology and Environmental Justice at Dexter University, where he has been serving more than 22 years. So he has a earlier also has a good connections with the Amity University, and he is a friend of our Amity University, and he wishes to have more serious joint activities between the Amity University and Dexter University through Professor Arthur, Frank Arthur. So this is so yeah. So the what is his aim is to develop a partnership with Dexter University may open a new opportunities for Amit researchers to address the, the persistent public health challenges. So that can be anything, any disease. So this is and contribute to the evidence-based solutions with real world impact. And the meeting could be used to, the plan is that few of the aspects have been identified just, but it can be beyond that also, that identifying areas of mutual interest with Dexter University, establishment of a collaborative framework to facilitate communication, data sharing, and project coordination, exploration of funding opportunities, project writing and development of grant proposals to support collaborative research efforts. So these are the few of the aspects. Before I invite Professor Rangathar for delivering the lecture, and before that, I would just uh, request all my esteemed colleagues to just briefly, just few seconds, just introduce what is your specialization and which department you are, just like that, and very quick. And then I would request after that Professor Kamal Rahman to say a few words or rather address to this gathering, and then Professor Frank Arthur will speak. So you can start from any place. From where?
Manoj.
Yeah, from Manoj.
Good morning and most welcome to Amity University. My name is Dr. Manoj Gar. I am a professor and assistant director at Molecular Medicine and Stem Cell Research Institute at Amity University. My area of research is like looking at the phthalate or other thing which are possible cause, the environmental cause of the carcinogenesis, specifically in the breast cancer, ovarian cancer, where we have done also the next generation sequencing and identified mutation in the SIP gene, because SIP genes are responsible for the metabolism of the most of the metabolites, phthalates or other plasticizer or pesticide. Apart from that, I am also involved in looking at the long non-coding RNA, which are the regulatory element on the miRNA. miRNA code the coding genome. So now the long non-coding RNA provide another layer of complexity into the human genome, and to understand that is very important. So that part I am looking into the pancreatic cancer and the gallbladder cancer, because these are two lethal cancer worldwide where the mortality is very high and survival is very less. While thinking that if we figure out some link RNA as a diagnostic or therapeutic tool later on. So this is all about. Thank you very much.
Make it brief.
Good morning, sir, and a very warm welcome to the MIT campus. I'm Dr. Tanveen Naved. I am the Deputy Dean for the Health and Life Sciences domain, and I'm also the professor at the School of Pharmaceutical Sciences. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, hello. I'm Dr. Pallavi Joshi, and I'm assistant professor in the Department of Public Health. My specialization is into air pollution and climate factors affecting population health. And my current work basically is looking at heat stress and multiple pollutants, air pollutants affecting cognitive health in cognitive development in young children, their early learning outcomes, and also reproductive health and puberty spacing in adolescents.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, sir. I am Dr. Bhuma Devi, Associate Professor and Coordinator of Public Health and Hospital Administration. And my specialization is healthcare management. So I have done smaller studies with related to occupational health hazards among healthcare workers in hospitals. So like I have done written case studies on how this narcissistic really affects the nurses like in the hospitals, like what is the impact on their health. So, welcome.
Hello, Dr. Arthur. Welcome to Amity University. My name is Dr. Shazina Saeed. I'm a public health geneticist by training. My areas of specialization is cardiovascular genetics and NCDs, and I'm particularly interested in evaluating the environmental stressors for cardiovascular disease, given the burden of the disease right now. Welcome, sir. Thank you.
In fact, Dr. Sajina has published a paper in Nature Medicine. Sajina, can you just mention that work on Nature Medicine which you published?
So we developed the first mouse model for hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which was published in Nature Genetics, and this work was done with collaboration with UPMC Children's Hospital, Pittsburgh. So that was the first mice model for this disease.
Great.
Good morning, sir. My name is Dr. Saurabh Verma. I am from Humanitarian of Pharmacy Department, and my area is specialization development of method and validation of new chemical entity and preclinical characterization of DMPK profile of pharmaceutical product. Thank you.
Myself, Dr. Prakash Halloy. I am from MIT School of Pharmacy. So welcome to sir in MIT University. So my area is basically to see basically the pharmacology and toxicology aspect of different diseases like autoimmune condition, cancer, and wound care and management.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir. My name is Dr. Ashan Awaz. So I am associate professor in Department of Public Health and Hospital Administration. My area of specialization is public health nutrition as well as NCTs. I am also working on the environmental degradation and the rise of triple burden of malnutrition in the India.
Thank he is among the top 2% scientists.
Study of the Vishay about that. The burden of
yes, sir. So I am also working as a senior collaborator in GBD studies, which is Global Burden of Disease Study by the University of Washington. Thank you, sir.
That's it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Namika Srivastava, Assistant Professor at Amity Institute of Environmental Sciences, and my area of research lies in arsenic geochemistry. Welcome, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Juhi Gupta. I'm also from MIT Institute of Environmental Sciences. My primary interest is in microbiology, and I have extensively worked on degradation of toxic compounds using microbes, and the primary focus was degrading carbofuran. It's a pesticide. Welcome.
Good morning, sir. My name is Dr. Taru Singh. I recently joined Amity University at Amity Institute of Biotechnology, and my research area is basically on vector-borne diseases with reference to climate change and antimicrobial stewardship and infection prevention, and its expansion in secondary care hospitals in India. Thank you so much.
Hello, good morning, Professor Arthur and Professor Rahman. Welcome to Amity. I'm Dr. Devlina Pramanik, an assistant professor with Amity Institute of Biotechnology. I extensively work on micro and nanoplastic pollution, and I have been working on that as a Marie Curie Fellow with the University of Leeds. And now I'm also working as a visiting professor with Kanazawa University, Japan. So I'm extensively working on characterization, analysis, and the toxicological impacts of these nanoplastics in water. Thank you and welcome again.
Good morning, Professor Dr. Arja and Dr. Rahman. Welcome to the Amity University. I'm Dr. Banashri Bandyopadhyay. I'm Assistant Professor in Amity Institute of Biotechnology. My area of specialization in immuno-oncology and molecular diagnostics. Basically, right now I'm working with natural hybrid products and oral contraceptives as an endocrine disruptor burden in environment also. Thank you, sir. Welcome again.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Pallavi Agarwal. I'm a faculty at Amity Institute of Molecular Medicine Stem Cell Research. I've been trained at University of Cologne, Germany, and then thereafter at University of Cambridge, UK. So that was Steve Jackson. He's a well-renowned DNA repair biologist, basically. And thereafter, I came back with DBT Ramalinga Fellowship, which is a fellowship which Indian government provides for bringing back the Indian scientists back to country. So I'm here for 8 years now, and have been funded by the government quite nicely. So my area of focus of interest for research is breast and ovarian cancer biology, and specifically into epigenetics. So my major interest in understanding how histone modifications like methylation, acetylation, and other type of modifications, microRNA, how they are being altered and they kind of regulate or dysregulate, leading to cancer generation, and then also find cancer therapeutics, epigenetic therapeutics to be able to attenuate those, and specifically into drug resistance and radiation resistance as well. So I have projects with atomic with BARC, Bhabha Atomic Research Center at Mumbai. So we are working on radio-resistant breast cancer cells to understand their biology with epigenetics. Thank you, sir, and welcome, sir.
Dr. Frank, actually we have such Ramalinga Swami fellows and Ramanujam fellows, more than 40 of them in our campus, including Manoj, who is sitting on your left. So these are brilliant re-entry fellowships, which is very competitive. And in Amity University, we are very fortunate to have more than 45 of these brilliant, young, and vibrant research fellows, like your Fulbright scholars. They're all just like that, very prestigious fellowships.
We have the highest number of these Ramalinga Swami fellows in the Amity University, and in this campus has the highest number.
Good morning. My name is Kamal Rawal. I'm professor and center head at Center for Computational Biology and Bioinformatics. My lab majorly works in building AI solutions for lung cancer detection in collaboration with hospital. Secondly, we have created a solution for vaccine development acceleration as well with Baylor College of Medicine.
Can you briefly mention about that platform which you developed, Kamal?
Yeah, this platform was funded by American Society for Clinical Oncology and Pfizer. So the platform basically works on radiogenomics fundamental. So we look at the imaging data of lung cancer patients and we combine that PET CT scan, histopathology and genomics data, and we predict what mutation the tumor or the patient would be carrying. Based upon that, the oncologist is able to prescribe the right medicine for that. So recently it was published in Lancet Regional Health Journal. So we are
also developed the vaccine platform.
Yes, for the vaccine, it's already there in the market. So we're in the process of scaling and building more collaboration.
Dr. Frank, we are using AI platform in a big way in health sector, particularly in cancer. So we have a 10 petaflop computing capability today in phase 1, and we are upgrading to 60 petaflop in the next phase. So this is a huge AI computing capability in the country today in a university system. Yeah, please go ahead.
Good morning, Dr. Arthur and Dr. Kamaraman. Welcome, Amity. I'm Dr. Rajeshri Das. I'm professor at Amity Institute of Biotechnology. My area of research is antibiotic resistance in Helicobacter pylori, that causes gastrointestinal diseases and gastric microbiota. Thank you.
And she is also the H. pylori. She works on H. pylori, and she is the surveillance. Why don't you mention about that for the Asia Pacific region?
I am a part of Asia Pacific surveillance program of antibiotic resistant Helicobacter pylori, and we published our result in Lancet Gastroenterology and Hepatology. Thank you.
Dr. Pooja Radwan, she is the director of AIB, which is Institute of Biotechnology, the biggest institute, and she will share what she is doing.
Thank you, Dr. Das. Good morning, Dr. Frank. My name is Pooja Raghavan. I head the Biotechnology Institute, which is one of the largest biosciences institute in the campus. with more than 2,000 students and 85 faculty members. So we are a huge team. And today we are represented by 5 of us, but 80 of us are in the campus. Specifically for myself, I work on antifungal drug discovery, natural products and their analogs. But in this case particularly, I also work in the area of drug resistance because AMR in fungal pathogens is not as widely studied as AMR in bacterial pathogens. So what my work that I've been doing for the past 5 years in this area is to understand the kind of resistance that is specifically happening in the Indian scenario, because we have a lot of climate change and also unregulated pesticide usage. Then we have states where agriculture is very extensively done, like Haryana, Punjab, in the northeast, and then we also have areas where low agriculture is being undertaken. So I am understanding what is the novel mutations that are happening in Aspergillus species. Aspergillus fumigatus and Aspergillus niger are huge issues because they're being spore-borne, they get transferred from the environment to the clinic. So what are those novel mutations that are not reported anywhere in the world, are reported in India, and are they getting transferred to the clinic? What is the level of AMR that we are seeing? How much resistance we see in azole drugs, because molecularly azole pesticide and azole drugs are very similar. So if they are azole resistant in the environment, they will be azole resistant in the clinic as well. So we also published this in Nature this year itself, and there are certain specific mutations that we have seen in the efflux genes of efflux pump for Aspergillus niger and fumigatus. It has not been reported anywhere in the world yet. So this is the work. So we have already done it in 428 samples across the country. Our next phase is to extensively work on specific regions to see what is the transfer rate. So that's the work that I'm doing. Thank you so much.
Warm welcome to you. Good morning to you. I'm Colonel C.V. Gopal. I'm working with Dr. Silvamurthy, and I'm looking after various defense-related issues and the MOUs with the Defense Research Institutes. And also we have MD Institute of Defense Technology, where we are training the students for the undergrad and postgrad courses, and subsequently training will be inducted into this service. Thank you. Warm welcome to you.
The next person is Dr. Raja. He is okay. I introduce you. Dr. Raja is postdoc to Professor Arthur, and he is accompanying here. And you can say a few words when you are working there.
Thank you. My name is Raja.
Where from you went from here?
Yes,
in India.
I'm from Delhi, and I'm Raja, and my supervisor's name is Dr. Arthur. Holly. Trying to work on mesothelioma and asbestos and other related areas.
The mesothelioma is a very dangerous cancer because it is in between the body cavity, in between the two cavity, and it's very difficult to treat this cancer. It's a very dangerous cancer. Thank you.
Warm welcome, Dr. Raja.
Good morning, sir. This is Isha Sood, Scientific Officer at Founder President Office, and I'm looking after the re-entry fellowship which Sir mentioned right now. And we have the team of more than 25 people who are directly working under the supervision and guidance of Honorable Founder President Sir. And the team is entirely working on managing the government and industrial funding opportunities in terms of projects and fellowships. We are the facilitation department, and we facilitate science to our faculty members and young researchers, where we work as a scientific collaborators. We facilitate scientific collaborations with national and international organizations. And the main highlight of our role is to bridge the gaps between the academia and industry, where we can take the research further with the kind support of all our researchers, scientific researchers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is Avinash Shahan. We are working on the same team, as she has already mentioned, that all the activities which we take care of through our office. And from this meeting also, we would like to take some outcomes so that that further can be followed up for the future course of action.
Dr. Frank, I just wanted to tell you something about these two guys who are sitting there. And we have about 40 of them. They are known as SNT warriors, science technology warriors. And Dr. Ashok Chauhan, the founder president, has created a big, huge number of SNT warriors. They have to search the scheme, opportunities, sense whatever schemes available, and then also strategize. How do we harness the maximizing the potentials of these schemes, circulating to the relevant faculties, getting the quality proposals, and applying to funding agencies like NIEHS, all these agencies, and including Wellcome Trust and so on. And then they also monitor the sanctioned projects. After the project gets sanctioned, we have a very rigorous monitoring of the progress of each and every project. So they do all this great job. And so he wants to increase it to 100 of them. Now there are about 40 of them. And they also have a mission, BBB, that is Bring Brilliant Brains to Amity. Thank you.
So this is the glimpse of the day, and also the Dr. Salvamurthy, and the persons here. There are many, Dr. Mr. Kumar Bhushan and Dr. Goodwin here. Do you want to speak any? Okay.
They know as well.
So this is the glimpse of the just a small glimpse of the people, those who are in this field working from the university. And now I invite Professor Kumar Amanji to speak few words before we invite Professor Frank Akhtar.
Good morning to everyone. I'm very happy I'm again here. I feel nice now to say I am also a part of Amity. And I met Arthur Frank in 1981. Long ago. He is my very old friend. And we have done lots of work on asbestos problems related to epidemiological aspects as well as the toxicity. I think in all the Indian industries where they use asbestos, I have worked and found out what are the problems. And still a case in the court is going on against me because in India they think white asbestos is not toxic. But all the varieties, I must assure you, are carcinogenic, pro-carcinogenic, and they induce a very dangerous disease known as mesothelioma, which is drug resistant. So we have worked a lot on that. Later on, I worked on nanoparticles also, and I'm working unions as they say, advisor on nano safety. And some of the nanoparticles, because nanotechnology has brought a revolution in the world. But some of the nanoparticles, especially the carbon nanotubes, are as toxic and carcinogenic as asbestos. I will not talk much, but recently my interest is on air pollution.
This is for recording.
Recently, my interest is on air pollution, climate change, and health impact. And I would be very happy if any one of you can develop a project with NIHS, because NIHS is also very much interested in that problem. So we can do some work on that. And I wish you all good luck. Excellent work is going on the younger side here. Now I will not talk much because I want that the main speaker should talk.
Dr. Kumarabha. And so thank you so much for bringing such brilliant connect, Columbia University, NIEHS, and many you have wonderful connect and Drexel. So we please drive this also subsequently to bring the maximum outcome of all this, your very great resources you have. Thank you so much, Dr. Kumarabha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your kind words. And now I invite Professor Frank Arthur, who has contributed immensely in the field that I just told. And we will look forward to your talk. And I think as everybody know that should know Professor Dr. Ashok Chauhan, our honorable competent, he is on the line. He will be in the line and he will join. But he's listening. I hope he is listening and he will be joining at the last quiz. And so thank you very much and coming over to Amity and please.
Thank you so much. It's really quite an honor to be here with you this morning. As you heard, Dr. Rahman and I go back more than 40 years. We came together over the subject of asbestos. And rather than talk about one narrow topic, when this was organized, I was asked to sort of give a more sort of global overview of the field. A little bit about me, and it's, first of all, I should say, not my first trip to Amity. I've been coming to India for more than 20 years now. I've probably been here more than 36 times. I've had connections with Amity, not only here in India, but the New York campus, not that far from where I am in Philadelphia. I've met many of your other colleagues. I can't say how impressed I am with what I've heard just around this table today of the type of work, the quality of work, the publications that are ongoing. And it reminded me of so many things that I've seen or thought about in my own career. A little bit by way of background, I've been an academic my whole career. So education's been important to me. I've headed departments at 3 universities. I've been a vice president for medical education at a medical campus. So I've done my fair share of administrative work too. That my scientific career goes back, actually, I was still a high school student when I worked in my first lab, and a university student before medical school. Published my first paper. It was a cancer paper. And how I got into the field of environmental and occupational health was I had the great privilege of being in the very first class when the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, a fairly prestigious medical institution in America. It's been around since the 1850s, but only started its medical school in 1968. And I was in the first class. Only 36 of us. You can imagine the intimacy of that. Professors were so happy to have us there, to be their first set of students. And I met the head of the Environmental Sciences Laboratory, a professor by the name of Irving Solikoff, who was working in the field of asbestos. And you heard from Professor Das that I was an anthropology student as an undergraduate. We have a different education system. And so I learned about other cultures. I learned about, it stood me in good stead as I literally traveled around the world to dozens of countries and done research in many places. The place that I visited the most, of course, though, has been India. At the moment, I have a visiting professorship at Maulana Azad, and I've been going there for more than 20 years. But I'm overwhelmed in terms of where science has gone. On a personal note, my older son is an oncologist. He's at Stanford University, like myself, an MD PhD in molecular biology, and he is now doing CAR T cell work, cutting edge treatment in the area of lymphomas specifically. And so he has, in just 3 years now as a young assistant professor, had over 30 publications, is traveling the world as well. And my career has been spent studying cancer, but as I've gotten older and transitioned into public health, I'm now at primarily a school of public health. I'm also a professor of medicine and a professor of environmental engineering at Drexel. And through that relationship, came to India several times with an Obama Singh grant some years back, working with IIT Delhi. But I first of all learned that my son, when he went to medical school, had to learn 50% more than I had to learn just, 20, 30, 40 years earlier. And what I heard around this table this morning is how much genetics plays a role in our understanding of disease, in response to therapy, in response to drug resistance, in response to which bacteria causing stomach cancer are going to cause a problem. And as I heard other issues like malnutrition, which is going to be a more serious problem going forward, I've done about 20 years worth of work in agricultural safety and health. So primarily, I trained as a physician. I practiced as a physician for much of my career. When I went to Drexel, it was to head up the Department of Environmental and Occupational Health, along with being a professor of medicine. So my ethos has been trying to prevent disease. That's what public health is about. And with my oncology son, I look and I've tried to prevent cancer, but what I realize is my failures become his and your patients because we don't always succeed. And so, again, rather than talk about a specific narrow area, I'm going to give you, the thoughts of someone who's now been a physician for more than 50 years, practicing, thinking about these issues. And as the title says, talking about global trends in environmental and occupational health. And online, the founder, Professor Dr. Chauhan, we've met when Professor Rahman had her Women in Health conference that I was able to attend at some years back in 17, 18. And so I've been connected to Amity, and Professor Rahman has visited with us at Drexel any number of times. So the connections are not new, and let's see, after this discussion, where we might be able to take them. And I thank you for the very kind introduction, though I'll share one more quick thought. In that very first class at Mount Sinai, our first president of the institution and dean of the medical school was being inaugurated. And all the students, because there were so few of us, got invited to a very fancy dinner at a very fancy hotel. And my classmates and I, the 36 of us, had liked him. We'd met him very early on. Had become, because even the dean had time to spend time with us. And our class, and I was asked to present it to him, gave him a gift on his inauguration as dean. And there was a very nice inscription. I had called his wife. He had needed a new copy of the complete works of Shakespeare. He read them regularly and had worn out his old copies. So we put an inscription in there. All of us signed it. And I handed it to him. And he looked at me and he said, "It's not what you think of me now as you're starting out. It's what you think of me at the end." So hopefully I will, it doesn't matter what flowery introduction get made. It's, can we find some common ground and some research that we can talk about?
And Arthur, I would like to add one thing. One thing I would like to add here, that he is also an honorary professor of Amity University. You remember we have honored you a few years back.
Thank you. So, I'm just going to start with this. As I think about the world, and we've heard several comments in this area, the existential threat to our planet is global warming. It is going to change so many things in the world. And so, part of what we have to do is think about these issues and prepare for the future. So, a little bit of history of the field that I work in. Occupational medicine and related fields actually goes back to the 1500s. People don't always think about that. There was a fellow named Paracelsus, who was really the first industrial hygienist or toxicologist. And it was Paracelsus who gave us the very simple but very elegant thought. You know, some of the most the most elegant thoughts in science, medicine, literature are the simple thoughts that carry so much weight. And what he said very simply is that the dose makes the poison. That is basically what toxicology is about. And literally a few years later, he wrote that in the 1540s. In 1556, there was another, both of these gentlemen were German. He was another German scientist who wrote a book called De Re Metallica on metals. And it was on mining and metallurgy. But there was a whole section in there on the health effects of miners in the Erzgebirge Mountains of Central Europe. And he wrote about some women having 6 husbands in their lifetime because the husbands would work in the mines and they would die very young. The women would have to remarry. And that was an interesting story in and of itself because was it the dust? Was it tuberculosis, which was a problem? It turned out, and we didn't learn this till much later, it was radiation. These mines are where Marie Curie got her pitch blende from. She got 3 tons of pitch blende and extracted 10 milligrams of radium. These were radioactively contaminated mines, and these men were all dying of lung cancer. That wasn't figured out till 1876 by 2 German pathologists. And then the father of our field of occupational medicine is an Italian physician by the name of Bernardino Ramazzini, who in 1700 wrote the book De Morbis Artificium on the diseases of workers. And in Western medicine, he added one question that all physicians should follow in terms of dealing with their patients, which almost none of them do. And no matter where I travel in the world, be it India, China, Mongolia, South America, even in the United States, what he said was physicians dealing with the common person, because in those days, medicine was really only for the clergy and for the princes. Medicine was only starting to come to the level of common people. He said, when dealing with the common people, you should ask of them what they do for a living. And I'm curious, just in this room, you're all professionals, you have access to healthcare. How many of you have ever been asked by your own doctors what kind of work you do?
I don't think I've been asked.
What?
I've been asked.
Okay, so 1 out of 20? 2. Well, that makes my point. So it is something we don't appreciate. And why is occupational and environmental health important? Because in my country, I know the figures, and around the world, the vast majority of people work. And they work in all kinds of work, some safe, some not so safe. But everybody lives in an environment, everybody in the world. And as physicians, we don't always appreciate that. So that's a little bit of the history of the field. So in addition to the field first being called occupational medicine, we finally realized in the 20th century that there were environmental concerns too, that hazardous materials didn't stop at factory gates. They came out into the air and water and soil, and workers brought them home, and things could contaminate neighborhoods. And so a study that I'm involved with right now in South America is looking at asbestos-exposed workers, population of 600, 300 who work in factories making asbestos, a number of people who live with these workers, and then people who just live in the general environment where they still use, like you do in India, a great deal of asbestos cement materials. But again, in the world, basic wash activities, water, air, and sanitation is still vitally important and not dealt with in huge parts of the world. It was just a few years ago that the United Nations said it was a year of clean water, but 2 or 3 billion people in the world do not have access to clean water. So again, from a public health standpoint, these very basic issues are still out there that we need to think about. But as we started just a bit ago, climate change is going to lead to displacement of people, leading to legal and undocumented migration. There are millions of people in the world who migrate and will be migrating and will be moving their homes because of the effects of climate change. Be it the Maldives, where the islands are going underwater, be it the small atolls in the Pacific, or be it workers from places like India and other developing countries that are going to other parts of the world for work. You know, I'm sure hear a lot about what's going on in the United States. We have a lot of what we call undocumented workers. Some people are less kind about that. But our whole society and many areas of work are bolstered by, are dependent upon folks who live in the shadows, but they're the ones that do most of our agricultural work and do other kinds of work that many Americans, frankly, are not willing to do. So there's already considerable migration from work. I recall just a few years ago when Qatar had the World Soccer Tournament, the football tournament, they built 7 new stadiums. Workers from all over came to work there, and again, were not very well taken care of, and there were many were unreported, but it still got out. There were many work-related deaths, and what we're starting to see and what India lived through, and which many countries are now living through, are heat-related illnesses, which are becoming more and more prominent. So what are some of these issues of work and workplaces, and how does this affect workers? There's the issue of cheap labor. We still have what amounts to indentured servitude. In some parts of the world, there are still conditions that one would call sort of outright slavery, and there's a lack of safe working conditions in so many places, even in the developing world. Some parts of the world do better. The Scandinavians are very good at this, many European countries. America, we have a very mixed history of safe working conditions. And unfortunately, we even have certain kinds of politicians right now that are making workplaces less safe, and they're allowing child labor is an issue, again, not unknown to those of you living in this country, but we have many more children, and again, many children who have come to the country without papers, that are undocumented, that are being put into very serious, unsafe working conditions. Another major issue is water availability. Again, that's not unknown here in India. I remember reading about Chennai a few years ago, almost running out of water. Water in so many parts of the world is becoming a more and more scarce commodity. And what is climate change doing? It's melting glaciers, so that agriculture is going to be affected. We have the overuse of aquifers in some places significantly enough that literally the ground is shrinking and subsiding because so much water that has been propping up the ground is being taken out. And we have the drying of rivers. Peru, for example, where they depend on melting of glaciers, where they grow 400 different kinds of potatoes, are going to run out of glaciers probably in 50 or 75 years. And how are you going to grow things without the water you need? In America, we have rivers like our major supplier of water out west, the Colorado River, that is drying up. We have the Panama Canal, where there's so little water entering it that the commerce is already being affected, where they used to be able to put through about 36 boats each day through the canal system. They're down to 12 boats a day because every time you move a boat, you lose water, and there's not enough water in the lakes to make the boats travel. I fear that there's even going to be armed conflict over water rights and water availability. So again, as populations are suffering and they suffer more and more, and as resources get more scarce, we're going to see armed conflicts over things like water just to be able to grow food to feed the growing world population. Agriculture is going to be affected. We've already just talked about the lack of water. We have weathering events. I mean, what happened here in June this year with temperatures 52, 53? We have some cities in the western part of the United States right now where for 100 days straight, they've had temperatures above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not quite sure how that translates. 35, 37, something like that. And even many days above 110, which would be about 42, 43. Unheard of. Literally in the last couple of days in North Carolina, there was such flooding. They said it's a 1,000-year flood, except what has been 500 and 1,000-year events are now becoming much more regular. What is this going to do to agriculture? So it's going to reduce crop yields, it's going to shift growing patterns, and it's going to allow the overwintering of pests that used to die because it got cold during the winter time, and the pests that would come out every year would die off, which isn't going to happen now. And so we're already starting to see some real issues in France and other European countries. Winemaking is being affected because things are hotter and there's less water. In Africa, major crops like vanilla from vanilla beans is being affected because, again, there's relative drought. And so what is this going to do for everybody in the world? The price of some of these materials is going to increase, as food prices have over the years recently here in India for some things. You know, when a kilo of onions got to 100 rupees, and I gather they're back down to about 60 now, but that still is very pricey for people to have common staples. Fishing is also going to be affected. We have overfishing already, and combined with that, we have increasing fish farming. So where does that take place? Very close to shore, we set up fish farms. It's a very dirty business. It's going to contaminate the water close to where we live. The genetics of those fish are going to be very different. We end up with monocultures of so many different foods. Wheat is very much a monoculture in some places. Bananas in some places are a monoculture. We only get one kind of banana in the United States. Most of them come from South and Central America. And they are being affected by a certain issue in the banana growing area. So these are very real issues. Fish, which many populations depend on, are going to become scarcer as well. Again, air pollution. I don't have to talk to people in India about the issues of air pollution, which have been and continue to be a problem. We continue to use fossil fuels. This has brought about changes that we haven't appreciated in terms of death and disease. It's only really been in the last maybe 10 or 15 years how much we've appreciated that increased deaths, increased morbidity, if not mortality. It affects children in schools in terms of their learning ability. All of these issues come from air pollution and the continuing use of fossil fuels, which of course is what's contributing to the changes in our climate. And while we talk about this, countries like China are still building 75 new coal burning power plants each year. India is still very reliant on burning coal. And I will say, this is a difficult issue because countries like India and China have said, look, the West is the cause of most of the changes that we've seen. There's no question about that. Europe, America created a lot of the issues of climate change. And they said, well, now it's our turn to develop and grow our country. There is a difference, though, when one thinks philosophically. We didn't appreciate all the hazards that existed, but the hazards are now known. And to not make more and more use of non-polluting sources strikes me as irresponsible. And there's this balance that has to be made between developing the society and increasing manufacturing, but also doing it in a way that doesn't continue to contribute to these kinds of issues. So in places like India and China, these are going to become world geopolitical issues. And 50 years from now, after China kept building more and more power plants, people are going to look at China and say, you knew, but yet you still did this. And so I think, yes, the West has done its contribution and has not always stepped up and done what it could do, but other parts of the world, I think, need to think about that as well. Mining of fuels and materials for computer use, for battery use, is going to be another source that's disruptive. There's certain products that we need for battery storage, which is going to get us through things like making use of solar powered or wind powered energy for when the sun doesn't shine or the winds don't blow. It's going to have to rely on batteries. That's going to add to the difficulties that we see around the world. We also have the demographic issues that are becoming increasingly more important. Having too many or too few workers. A country like India, there's underemployment of people because there's not enough jobs in good settings for people. In places like China, where they had this, what I think they now recognize was a disastrous, one-child policy, they don't have enough people to work. They literally just this week passed rules to increase the retirement age because they don't want workers leaving the workplace. And who's going to support? Few workers can't support the retirement. We're seeing those trends in the United States. Our demographics are shrinking, and so there are fewer people working who are supporting people like myself. I'm old enough to, even though I'm still working, to collect my Social Security. I get my old age pension in America, even though I continue to work because I waited long enough to do that. And so this issue of demographics in many countries is one that will have to be addressed. And all of that goes back to what are the resources that are available. Many countries cannot absorb all the new workers. In China, in some countries in Southeast Asia and Africa, look at all the students graduating from universities with advanced degrees that can't find jobs. How do we address that? I don't claim to have a lot of the answers, but I think we have to think about what the problems are. Other countries have true labor shortages. Japan, the United States, some European countries, and some Arabian countries claim. Arabian countries, some of the folks there don't want to do certain kinds of work, so they import workers, which is why we have some of these migratory issues. And India has some special worker issues. I don't mean to be dismissive or cause any concern, but I can't tell you, as I've been coming here for decades and looking at workplaces, that sometimes workers are considered a disposable commodity. One hates to use those kinds of words, but if somebody gets sick and leaves, there's lots more people to take their place. In parts of the world, including India, you still have a child labor problem. There's still, admittedly, 14 million, which I'm sure is an undercount, children work. I mean, I've seen, as I traveled around the country some, and I've been to probably at least 20 cities and traveled between them, 8-year-old children working, doing jobs that have kept them out of school just to keep a family going. There's exploitation of workers, and then some very specific issues being out in Rajasthan with the red rock mining, where the miners are being exposed. Even though asbestos has been a major area of interest of mine, other occupational lung diseases like silicosis, like coal workers' pneumoconiosis have been a major part of what I've done. I spent part of my career in Kentucky, which was at the time the second leading coal producing state in America. And so I was responsible for 1,000 coal miners at a company, both above ground strip mines and underground mines. And again, I would suspect there are not many physicians like myself that have had their own steel-toed shoes and hard hats and have been crawling around in 42-inch coal seams trying to learn about the workplaces of the workers that I've been responsible for. One of the things about occupational medicine is you can't, I believe, be a good occupational physician and understand workers if you don't go out and see the workplaces. You can't stay in your white coat in your office and only deal with it there. So I've been out to the mines and have seen workers putting nothing but a cotton sheet over their mouth as they're cutting through rock, trying to make ornate materials to be put up on buildings. There's a whole history of significant workplace issues. Again, I've been a bit of a student of the history of this field, so it was in the 1750 to 1850 period of the rise of manufacturing. It also meant that for the first time, people left the agrarian life. Most people, in fact, the major job in the world is still farming. 60% of Indian workers are still on farms. In some countries, 70 and 80% of all work is done in the area of farming. But what happened is, as manufacturing rose, it concentrated workers in cities near factories, which brought about housing issues. Tuberculosis, while it had been around for a while, became a much more serious problem as you crowded more people into smaller spaces. We finally, in the late 19th century, started having laws regarding women and children in workplaces. And as I said, in America, some governments are now allowing children to do jobs that they weren't allowed to do before. So we're reversing safety trends in America. Worker safety really began around 1900. Workers' compensation started in Germany in the 1880s, finally came to America in the early part of the 20th century. There was the major issue in occupational medicine in the 1930s was silicosis. Asbestos became the big issue in the 60s and 70s. The 1980s brought us ergonomic issues with keyboards. Which of us hasn't worked on a keyboard, but we don't do it as much as an office worker who sits there for 8 hours a day, ending up with lots of musculoskeletal problems. Now, what do we have in the 2000s? Some of you are working on it, endocrine disruptors. We have the estrogenic effects of pesticides and other materials that are out there. And now in the 2020s, what's the big new issue in my world and in many places is PFAS, the polyfluorinated compounds that are now the forever chemicals that people are appreciating could have some serious health effects. And none of these problems have ever really been solved. And silicosis, we just in the last couple of years passed some new regulations on silicosis in the United States for a problem that we've been dealing with for well over 100 years. And we continue to identify new issues. We don't solve the old ones, but we get new ones. Asbestos turns out to be a contaminant in talcum powders. How many hundreds of millions of people in Southeast Asia and India use talcum powder on a regular basis? It's contaminated with asbestos. And as Dr. Raj is now studying, rates of mesothelioma, which are woefully underreported everywhere in the world, but particularly in India. The largest number that was ever reported in a paper up until the paper we just published recently was 128 cases. We just identified more than 2,200 in just a few hospitals in India over a 10-year period. So this is another one of these, we see a little tip of the iceberg. We don't see all the rest that's there. I published a paper about a year and a half ago of 166 cases of mesothelioma in people who use talcum powders, only roughly 40 of whom had other exposures. So we had more than 120 cases in the United States of mesothelioma just from talcum powder exposure. So how much of that's going on in India that nobody knows about? We have mental health issues at work. Some of you working on behavioral issues. That is becoming a more important issue. My dear friend and colleague has been working on nanos and nanoparticles. And so those of you that are working on microplastics, that's, another area. So we keep finding new serious problems. We've learned that nanoparticles get into the bloodstream. They cause irritation of blood vessels. They're contributing to heart disease. They cross the placenta. What are they doing to the newborn before it's born? As asbestos crosses the placenta. We know from stillbirths that asbestos fibers have made it across the placenta into stillbirths. So, and we have all these new scientific tools, getting down to the molecular level of these things. But we still have to think of the big picture and how we can meld the knowledge of working at a precise level with the big picture that causes these problems that we're working on. So Indian talc, children blowing it off, a product, we've published on this. I can show you. So, and then in India, you resist using safer materials. There are non-asbestos fibers. There are pesticides that other countries in the world have stopped using, but are still made and used here in India. So these are levels. These are problems that are at levels that need action beyond the walls of science. I mean, we're all comfortable in the skill set that we've learned, that we've trained for, but that has to be put into action as well. You have to take that knowledge and work in the public health arena to literally protect the health of the public. So major issues are mitigated but not fully solved. I mean, we've gotten rid of leaded gasoline pretty much everywhere in the world now. But I was just yesterday talking with some colleagues at BAMC, at Milan Azad, that they're going to start looking at lead in children, which is still a problem. And there are still sources of lead that we see. So what are workplace concerns? If I was a worker, am I going to be displaced by robotics or AI? What do we do with all the people who may not be able to hold a job anymore? And it's not just, it's a big problem. And it's not just, menial jobs. Architects now can be anywhere in the world. And in the United States, during the nighttime, there are many hospitals whose emergency rooms, when there's no radiologist there, send their digital images here to India to be read by Indian doctors at night to report back to the United States. I mean, even McDonald's is having Indian workers take orders at a McDonald's in America to serve food to Americans. So what is this displacement of work going to mean? This is going to make a need for continued worker migration. You're going to have to go where the jobs are, and it requires new training for new types of jobs. I mean, that's the one good thing about advancement in terms of new products, is that there are new skills that have to come along. So robots are wonderful. I've worked in, been an advisor to an automotive company where a lot of their product, the automobiles, are built by robots. But somebody has to build the robot, somebody has to fix the robot. So there are new jobs that are created with new technologies. Worldwide, we have a lack of people engaged in health and safety. We don't have enough physicians, nurses, industrial hygienists, safety people, radiation physicists, all those people who look after the safety and health of workplaces and the general environment. India has a particular need for properly trained individuals, especially physicians. I've spent many years coming over here, one time a year, just to train physicians to become certified through the Indian system to get credentialed to become occupational physicians. It only required a 3-month course here. In America, it's about 3 years of training to be able to call yourself an occupational physician. But there's needs here in India. Other persistent issues with regard to workplaces. This is something I think about It's a discussion for another day, something that I call science for sale. I mean, most of us do our science, we publish, we know what the truth is, but there are some scientists that, in a very small percentage, even think about climate change. 97% of the scientists who look at this see it as a real problem. There's about 3% that don't. And who do they work for? They work for the fossil fuel companies. They work for companies who have put them on their payrolls to counteract what most of us know is the weight of the evidence of science. But there's going to be issues of worker pay and worker abuse, working conditions. Executive pay, maybe not here in India, but in the United States, has gotten so out of hand. It used to be that the head of a company would be paid 20 times what the average worker is paid. Now it's 2 million times. Executives in America, I mean, look, Elon Musk just got a $50 billion paycheck from his company. That's absurd. That's absurd. The cost of products is going to go up because of this. And then there's this whole issue of, dishonest science that we have to guard against. And we see, corporate greed and misinformation, especially in areas like climate change. We also see things like the fossil fuel companies buying up new technologies that could work and make things better, and then they just bury them because they want to continue to sell their products. And we learned this with the tobacco industry. We now see it with the fossil fuel industry. We knew it with the lead industry, that they knew that there were hazards, but that's not the face they put out to the public. So, as I said, seen in the tobacco industry. How do we fight against this? Maybe we need stronger unions. We need more workers in the organized sector here in India. And we need to change people's buying habits. We need to buy less disposable products and more things that are resilient. Normally, most of my adult lifetime, I would buy a new car, not like most Americans every 3 or 4 years. I would go 14 years before I'd buy a new car. I mean, there was no reason, I didn't need the latest model, but as I've sort of gotten older and I wanted to do something for the environment, I traded my last one in after only 8 years because I wanted a hybrid. And I increased my mileage by about a third by just making a partially electric vehicle. And I think each of us has to think as we buy things and as we do things, can we do with less disposable things and more things that are permanent? And so the last set of thoughts I'm going to leave you with, especially my colleagues in the public health arena, we need to strengthen public health. The COVID outbreak was a wake-up call that we were so underprepared for a worldwide pandemic. And those of us who had enough years thinking about this, and I hate to leave you with this kind of thought, we recognized, even in America, the richest country in the world, as they say, that we were woefully underprepared in terms of public health, not to mention many other countries. And so all of a sudden, the government threw huge sums of money into the public health arena. And those of us who've lived through some of these lesser cycles had the cynicism to say, yep, this is what's going to happen. They're going to put a lot of money in, we're going to solve the problem, and as soon as it's over, it's all going to go away. And you know what happened? Not only did it go away, it went away so much that we're left now, compared to pre-COVID, with a weaker public health system than we had then. Fewer people employed. I don't know the situation here in India about that or other places, but the lack of understanding of prevention, of keeping people healthy. The old Chinese system, 5,000 years ago, you paid your doctor for every day that you were healthy. You didn't pay him on the days you were sick. And except for the occasional hypochondriac, you probably made out pretty well because most people are healthy most of the time. We don't have a healthcare system in the world. We have a medical system where we treat disease we don't prevent disease. And that's what, I've gotten to, at this stage of my career. So the last thought was, there are some things that give me hope, we had Paul Revere warning us about the British coming, but here, the facts are coming. And I figure ultimately, when you deal with the facts, the truth will ultimately prevail. And our necessity and our success for the future is going to take the non-scientists around us to educate them and educate the people in power who make decisions about the issues that are facing us, the issues that are coming, and to the extent that we can, if we give them the facts and are persuasive about that, not the lies, but the facts, the truth will ultimately prevail, and we probably can keep people healthier and prevent disease and mitigate what will otherwise be, not so long after I'm gone, that it'll affect my children and my grandchildren, which will be a world that will be a much less friendly place to be living in. So thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts with you.
Dr. Das,
Yeah.
this is one of the best lecture I have ever heard.
Thank you so much.
Right from the public health aspects of the environmental pollution impacts, and also how do we mitigate, and the behavioral changes which is required, legislative approach which is required, and also ultimately the research and development in this domain is very, very critical. That Frank, you are a great person who has made a significant impact in this field, translating them into action. Because many of the people stop with research, publications, recommendations, but you are the one who have ultimately translated them into the impact on the society. So that is where it's really a great learning for us. And all our people here in the public health, molecular medicine and stem cell research, occupational health, and AI, we are all here to see that how do we connect with you, and also how do we build a very strong partnership to contribute to this big mission, which is very important, climate change, and also impact of environment, which we have polluted so much, which we have disturbed so much. How do we mitigate? How do we ameliorate all the bad effects of the damages which we have done to this Mother Earth? How do we now bring it back? So it's a great mission which you are in, and I'm sure all of us will be very keen to work with you. And let's discuss also maybe after this question answer session at which are the areas where we can launch a program together with you, and subsequently we can also take this collaboration forward in a much more expanded and in a deepened manner. So thank you so much, Frank, for this excellent talk, and also your wonderful contributions you have made for this research in this domain. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind words. And the other thing that strikes me is with modern electronics, I mean, even though I come here often, there are things that we can do and keep in touch and do whatever because of modern, electronics. There was during COVID when I was trying to lecture to train some of those occupational physicians, I was getting up and lecturing at 5:30 in the morning to a 3:30 audience here in Delhi at Maulana Azad, where they were doing their training. So there are ways to collaborate without physically being there. But I will also say that, as I've had the good fortune to travel the world, that there's something about the personal interaction that is also important.
Thank you very much, Professor. That I will not summarize again. It's an excellent lecture that you have given, all aspects covered, that how from the starting from the cosmetics to pollution to all the new gadgets and how it affects in their daily life. And it's very important, the workplace exposure and the pollutions and other things really makes things our environment, because we generally say 80% of the cancer or other diseases, it is related to cancer. Everything is around cancer, around environment, and we are living within the environment. So we cannot escape. So we have to protect, and it is very nicely summarized point that we have a medical system but not healthcare system in place. So that is important. Prevention is better than cure. So we can many things, because there are hundreds of things we can prevent, including cancer, if it is taken care in the from the beginning. We know, starting from the your asbestos to many of the environmental mutagens and carcinogens, we are getting exposed day by day, and that is why it is well known, well established that when you born, you are all fine, everything is normal. And as you ages, then you collect all the bad things in your body, and it leads to your mutation or any changes, and then you have the disease starting from 40, 45, 50 onwards. And some people are fortunate enough that they get escaped, because everybody's metabolic systems and genomics, they are different. So many are susceptible, many are not susceptible. So many escape, but majority gets trapped with the different aspects, and none of these their own fault. But it is the nature or it is the environment which make them to suffer, because that is not the fault of the persons. So majority cases, and that leads to the as the age after 50, 60. So they are afraid of that some cancer or the something will happen. So everybody has to be vigilant, but most important is that as a researcher, as a scientist, we look forward that the today's generation here, that how we can protect or prevent. Prevention is better than cure, so we need to think of including cancer and many other diseases. I think all types of diseases are preventable. If not, it is hereditary one or familial one. Without that, the others can be preventable if it is detected early. So this is what is the most important principle, and is nicely summarized that the healthcare, and Dr. Silvamurthy has also summarized. So I would now invite all my esteemed colleagues so to establish the connection with that with Professor Arthur Frank. So what is it you want to do? You can just share. Those who are one by one can share that you can establish. You will be given the address and email address and all these connections. So that is what I have asked to share. That will be for, you can take, or it will be given in the just focused in the slide, so you can note down. But if you have emergency any topic to discuss, this is a half an hour time to introduction. You can do that 20-25 minutes. So you can tell about something, madam.
Yes. As Dr. Frank, as usual, excellent lecture. I will say one thing, that we all talk about the technology. Technology comes first, now it's that, and toxicology comes later. We must emphasize that when technology is coming, we give the technology after testing it well, but it's not. We immediately take the technology. Later on, we talk about the asbestos, the magic mineral fiber, how much time it took, how many lives it has taken. Arthur Friend was talking about the COVID. I have seen with my own eyes in Central Square in New York. There was, I will use my own word, Motta Sanata. And how much time it took coming the vaccine. So many people died. So we should be very careful about that. And what he was talking, we should seriously take about it. For example, in India, indoor air pollution is a lot. I have done lots of work with Kauki Smith. He was the first person. इसने कहते हैं औरतों के आंसू पोंछे थे. He has done lots of work on indoor air pollution. But still it is going on. The Prime Minister had announced Ujjwala Yojana. They got cylinders. But after that, they haven't got any others. So these are the things, these are the issues we must think about that. And we should work on that. We all think about high technologies. But the problems which every country in their own country is facing, we should think about. Isn't it?
That's an excellent point, because it's always the technology comes, and you think back, look at what happened. The beginnings of manufacturing in the world was the cotton mills. You could grow cotton, you could gin it, you could make fabric out of it. It wasn't until they'd been doing this for a while that they realized that bisonosis, cotton dust lung disease, came along after that. It's always that the health effects are thought about later rather than being studied at the same time. And your comment, Dr. Das, that from the moment we are alive, we start getting exposed to things that may end up giving us disease. It reminds me of a rather, sort of thought that I've thought about in terms of workplaces. If I take a gun out and shoot you, that's considered murder. If I poison you a little bit every day with a carcinogen and you end up getting cancer, that's the cost of doing business. Any comments, questions? There.
Shall I? Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for this enlightening talk. I have a question regarding climate change and this occupational health disease. Because since it's a non-communicable disease, and in today's time, very few literature is present with regard to climate change and non-communicable disease. So I want to know how climate change will put its impact on non-communicable disease, especially this occupational health disease, and what mitigation strategies should be adopted in reference to India, a country like India.
Well, I tried touching on that a little bit. I think you're going to see more malnutrition in the world. That's the first issue, because crops are not going to grow as well. There's not going to be as many. We have more people. The price is going to go up, for all those reasons. Issues like fish farming is going to contaminate water supplies. We're going to not have enough water. I think heat stroke and heat stress and heat related illnesses. If we get away from some kinds of foods, but give people calorie rich but nutrient poor food, you're going to see diabetes is going to be affected too, because that's going to continue to make people with diabetes worse and maybe contribute to more disease. Other issues not related so much to climate change, but with nanomaterials, with microplastics, is going to cause inflammation in blood vessels and in other parts of the body that are going to contribute to non-communicable diseases. The mitigation is going to be to use less of these materials to, guard our water supplies. In a richer country like America, I'm truly surprised I haven't started thinking of that already. But it's going to be very expensive. It's going to do what some of the countries in Desert Arabia do, which is desalination. I mean, just to have enough water. But that's going to take energy, and then, what do you do with the byproducts? I mean, there are all these issues that are so intertwined. But we have to start thinking in a more sort of global approach to doing this.
So can we adopt a global approach, mitigation?
I think it is. I would just add along with that it is not just non-communicable diseases. it is also communicable diseases.
Yeah.
You see, in India, there are places we know from our childhood, and many people know that some places there never has any floods. And this, even in Delhi, you are seeing every day it is raining in this time also. And many of the places never had, we have heard that they have a flood. So, but then it is now flooding all places in India. And that leads to all havoc, that the infectious diseases and all the bacteria, virus and all this, there are all, they suffer from diarrhea and all. There is no good water available and no medicine available and all this. So that leads to almost like a epidemic. So those areas affected, you can imagine for a weeks together or days together or months, they are submerged in water. So that's, you can imagine that what is the condition. So this is also, it is because of the climate change. This is the effect of, and heat, of course, it is there. So this is many of the aspects which are related to the climate change that is we are suffering from.
In the more than 20 years that I've been coming here, it wasn't until this visit that somebody said, you know, we now have dengue in Delhi. You need to be concerned about the mosquitoes.
Yes.
I'd never heard that in 20 years. You had another follow-up.
So my question is answered now, and I have a comment to make. We had detected asbestos in a talcum powder from the company Johnson and Johnson.
Before I will take your question next. Johnson and Johnson is one of my real nemesis companies. One of the things I didn't share with you now. Talking about how do you bring about change? What I didn't tell you, but I'll tell you now. For over 45 years, I have been going to court on a regular basis, testifying 99% of the time for injured workers or injured parties, mostly related to asbestos, but other things, benzene and a few other exposures. And some years I look at 500 or 600 medical legal cases. And you can imagine lawyers pay people like me absurdly large sums of money to come to court. I mean, that's, it was Dr. Solikoff, one of my mentors, who once simply said, where money changes hands, there is often mischief. What have I done for 45 years with all that money? I have, up until now, never put a penny of that in my own pocket. It has generated literally millions and millions of dollars in 45 years. But I told you I was a department head at 3 institutions. How did I do 20, trips to China? How have I done 40 trips, almost 40 trips to India? How do I go to South America? How do I spend 7 summers in a row going to Mongolia, where none of these places could afford to bring me over? This is monies that I've used for these kinds of activities. And I will tell you, on Saturday, just before I left the States, I was at an asbestos conference, the 20th anniversary of an organization that I serve on the advisory board. I co-chair the scientific advisory board of this asbestos group. Somebody asked, if you're trying to bring about change, what has brought about more change? New science or taking these companies to court? And the answer is taking the companies to court. When you hit them in their pocketbook, you get their attention. Now, Johnson & Johnson has claimed for decades that their product is free of asbestos. Back in the 1970s, talc was first found to have asbestos in there. It didn't make much, I knew the studies. We didn't sort of think about that very much. Starting maybe 10 years ago, I told you about those 166 cases. Not everybody, the biggest manufacturer in America was Johnson & Johnson. So, a very funny story. I told you about my older son. I'll tell you about the story of my younger son. Two boys, 1 girl. And my younger son, when he was born 35 years ago, at the hospital, newborns, they bring a basket to the mother, cream, and they bring diapers. and they brought a little bottle of Johnson & Johnson baby powder. And I don't know why. My wife was very good. We never used that kind of stuff on the kids. Not that we thought about the asbestos issue, we just didn't do it. I think she used cornstarch, which is a perfectly acceptable substitute and much healthier. Anyway, so we dragged this bottle to at least 4 different places that we moved to. And I still had this bottle a few years ago. And I sent it to a reputable lab, a fellow that I published with, the fellow that I did the Indian talc study with. 58 million structures per gram of asbestos in that bottle. And so here I am at a deposition one day, and Johnson & Johnson, has often been the defendants in these cases. And they said, well, Dr. Frank, have you learned anything new about our product since the last time we deposed you? And the only reason I've lasted for more than 45 years doing this is because I always tell the truth. See, I once had a lawyer say to me, we've read 100 of your old depositions and we can't find anything, to catch you on, to impeach you on. So I said, yes, I have some new data. He says, well, what's that? Well, my own bottle of baby powder, unopened, sent to the lab, never cracked open, not open to contamination, 58 million structures per gram. Oh, can you send us a copy? Yes. That was 4 or 5 years ago. To this day, Johnson & Johnson still goes to court and says our product has never had asbestos in it. Not only that, because of all the lawsuits, Johnson & Johnson decided to stop selling baby powder in North America, United States and Canada. And I wrote a letter to the editor to the local newspaper in Philadelphia, and I said, isn't this nice? They're going to stop selling this cancer-causing agent in America, but they're still going to sell it to 160 countries around the world. And I guess it's okay to kill people elsewhere, just not Americans. Some version of that. I started getting these nasty emails from some unknown person till I looked him up, and he was a vice president of Johnson & Johnson, who accused me of being bought and paid for by the plaintiff's attorneys. The only reason I come to court and lie is because they're paying me, And I said, I wrote back and I said, I've never gotten a penny of this money. Oh, they must take care of your children. They must buy you a car. They must do, something. So that's what I mean. The truth will eventually win out. And they decided to stop selling it around the world. But this is the kind of pressure that you have to put on companies. And so if you have an opportunity to hit them in their pocketbooks, you can have an effect. You've been very patient.
No, thank you so much. Just because you asked, I don't know about the public health scenario in India. So hate to put it this way, but COVID was perhaps the best thing that happened to the public health sector in India, because it made people realize that it was beyond vaccination and beyond, the routine stuff that it does. So a lot of positions opening. When we opened the MPH program in Amity, we were only 3 of us, like 3 schools in Delhi NCR. Now we have 21 post-COVID. So that is how much impact public health professionals have made, and even the molecular projects and the fundings which are coming up, they all have public health relevance to it. So all of them want that. So it's a great time to be in public health in terms of funding. And I really liked when you said that each one needs to start doing their bit. So this is where we lack as a population in general in terms of awareness and education. So a lot of our population is not aware of what can be harming them. So, environmentally and also just diet, all of it holistically, how it is affecting us. So we would be really happy to collaborate on projects related to NCDs, cardiology, cognitive behavior. That is our specialty.
Education is at the basis of this.
Yes, absolutely.
Another quick story. Earth Day started in the United States in 1971 was the first Earth Day. And I was finishing 1 more year after that in medical school. I organized the first Earth Day program at Mount Sinai. Dr. Selikoff was my supporter, and he had money and he knew some people. We got an interesting panel together. And the following year, it was before I met the lady who became my wife, I was dating this young woman who was a first grade teacher. And the next year, 72, again, we did an Earth Day at Mount Sinai, but she invited me to her first grade class to talk about Earth Day with
Kids.
6-year-old, 7-year-old kids. And I will tell you, one of the very best questions I ever got was from one of those kids. He looked at me, this is, in the city, and he says, we live in an apartment, and we have two faucets on our sink. One is hot water, and one is cold water. He said, where does hot water come from? And I thought that was a brilliant question from a 6-year-old, because it gave me a chance to say, well, in the basement of your building, there's a big boiler that heats water. And so it burns fuel, so we have to conserve that. You can't waste water. You can't waste hot water. And education, we have so many failings in our education system in America, because I know that the best. I won't talk about other places. The level of science education in particular is abysmal. People come out of high school not understanding science at all. And so, all of the untruths that get told, and put into the public discourse sometimes, they have no way to sort out what's real and what's not, because they have no good basis to understand that. And interestingly, people, as an academic my whole career, I've served on all kinds of committees. At Drexel right now at the School of Public Health, I think for every year but 2 in the 22 years I've been there, I'm on the admissions committee. And at medical schools, I was on the admissions committee or worked with the admissions committee. And I always said that I thought the most important committee at a medical school was the admissions committee. It's who got into the school, who became a doctor.
Yeah.
And yes, you need people that are smart, they need to know some science. But I was always looking for people that had some social understanding, that had an appreciation of the population. I mean, medicine, we have, I think, 36 or so medical specialties in America that you can become a certified specialist. There's general surgery, and then all the surgeries. Then there's internal medicine, and then cardiology and pulmonary medicine, etc. I'm a specialist in internal medicine, which I did along with occupational medicine. There's only one field that thinks about populations, and that's preventive medicine, public health. I mean, preventive medicine is a subset of public health, which is far bigger than just preventive medicine. But we need to be smart about educating people. The earlier, the better. One of the things that Dr. Raja is doing, the paper we've just worked on, is how good are the school meals for school children? And are they following the government rules? And it turns out it's abysmal, and that the quality and types of foods that are being offered to the children or being sold or available to them doesn't follow any of the government regulations. So even just putting a regulation in place doesn't make it happen. And so one has to follow up and keep public pressure to see that things actually happen, be it, for non-communicable diseases, heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure from salt, whatever. So, yeah.
Sorry. Please, perhaps I'll just introduce Dr. Vishwas as the director. And can introduce and we can tell.
I'm Professor Vishwas. Yeah, we are in Amity Institute of Molecular Medicine and Stem Cell Research. Actually, BC Das sir actually established the institute, and I have listened to all talks in the online because I'm listening because senior professor Manoj is there, Dr. Pallavi is there, So they are here, so I have to take care.
Somebody had to be watching the office. Yes,
in the department, because department now. Department we established now several very good courses like biomedical sciences, biochemistry, then cancer biology, stem cell and technology, molecular medicine. So we have a 24/7 laboratory event. We try to open it from morning 8 o'clock to 9 evening, like that. So it's a just research oriented laboratories. So we established. Personally, I'm 10 years in US. I was initially in South Carolina Medical University, South Carolina, after PhD. Then I start genuine research as a principal investigator over there in Vanderbilt Medical Center. So in Nashville. So yeah, I was listening about the flood in North Carolina. Yes. So though I am a molecular biologist, especially in the cancer biology, not in environmental science, but trying to do with emphasis of the tumor microenvironment in liver cancer, especially. How it is stem cell is related. What is the impact of hematopoietic stem cell over there to recover the damage, and as well as cancer relapse, cancer stem cells. Thank you, sir. So,
that reminds me, because you brought up another sort of non-communicable disease. You're studying liver cancer.
Yes.
You know, growing peanuts and having aflatoxin.
Yes.
You know, is going to be another issue. As things, you know, those fungi are going to grow more than they did before. And so there's going to be contamination, but the food is still going to be eaten. And so, you know, that's going to contribute to liver cancer along with hepatitis B and all that. But
environmental impact on liver cancer, especially in the damage.
I see Dr. Nidhi wants to speak something. I think is
Dr.
Nidhi,
Das. Dr. Das.
Yes, you have. Yes, sir.
I would also request you to spend 5-10 minutes about what is that we can do together with him. You know, with so many people, top people sitting there, from public health, occupational health, molecular medicine, biotechnology, pharmacy.
It's not questions, but what you have said rightly, that they should, our colleagues should say
just a few thoughts, so that we can take it forward subsequently to crystallize into a collaborative endeavor between Amity Group as well as with
I think Nidhi can start. I think a long time you are waiting. So
Thank you very much, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So, very good afternoon to everyone and namaskar. Well, sir, it was indeed an excellent lecture with holistic approach for not just the individual problems that humankind face, but it's about the sustenance of humankind on earth and earth itself as a whole. So we need to contribute, each one present on globe need to contribute, then only we can sort out or go towards some positive end for the humankind. So in this context, I would like to ask a question as to what is your view on United Nations policy and their implementation in this regard, and how much effective it is, and what are the protective measures that we all should follow?
That's a very general, overarching question, and I think this is indeed a major role for the United Nations, because through its agencies like the WHO and IARC, which looks at what causes cancer, many countries in the world look to WHO documents and pronouncements to govern their own policies. But again, the information is there, but the will has to be there to implement it. And I will also share with you that even these international bodies can be infiltrated by outside influences in a very negative way. I'll give you two quick examples. They both have to do with asbestos. That's where I spend a lot of my time, thought, and energy. An issue that has come up in the last few years that I'm being asked more and more about is the ingestion of asbestos. Everybody thinks about asbestos as an inhalation problem that you get into your lungs and get asbestosis and you get mesothelioma in the chest. But there's growing evidence, and some of this evidence is more than 50 years old, so it's not new, but more and more, that it also causes gastrointestinal tract cancers, so esophageal cancer, stomach cancer, colorectal cancer, causes kidney cancer. We know that the fibers get there. They're in all of these organs. And so more and more I've been asked to address the issue of ingested asbestos. The WHO has in the past had a very odd sort of view. It says there's how do they put it? No consistent evidence that the ingestion of asbestos causes disease. Well, in any field, I'm sure you all know, there's always positive studies and there's always negative studies, especially when you're doing epidemiology. But the weight of the evidence and the growing body of data shows that it really is a problem. So yes, it's not consistent, it's not 100%, but none of science is 100%. And even we recognize when we do statistical analysis that you're allowing yourself a 5% chance that you got the wrong answer. You know, I mean, even how we do science, we recognize that we're not infallible. So on the one hand, they say there's not that evidence, but on the other hand, they say nobody should be using asbestos cement water pipe anymore, which is still being widely used around the world. In America, where this has become an issue, there's over 600,000 miles, I translated it once, about 1 million kilometers of asbestos cement water pipe in the United States. And the only country in the world that has a standard for asbestos in water is the United States. 7 million fibers per liter of water. Not based on any good science, but it was a number. The EPA had to come up with a number. It's the only country with a standard. All right? About 200 or 300 samples have been taken around the United States. Some are very low, a couple of 100,000 fibers per cc. But I recently got a call, one small community in Pennsylvania where they have a lot of asbestos cement pipe, 1.3 billion fibers per liter in the local water supply. And some cities have had up to 2 billion fibers per liter of asbestos. I don't think that's a good idea to be ingesting a carcinogenic agent at the rate of billions and billions of fibers a day. So that's one aspect of the WHO and where it's not always as helpful, but I still think that's probably a good place to see that things get said. The other problem is, again, in the area of asbestos, depending on who they get to write some of their publications, the same doctors who work for industry and get paid a lot of money to protect the asbestos industry in the United States and elsewhere, but mostly in the United States, have managed to write certain documents under the WHO imprimatur saying that while 80% of mesotheliomas in men may come from asbestos, only 20 to 40% come in women. And they claim, well, because we're going to get exposed occupationally. The data is completely false. It's wrong. There's many other studies that document 88, 90%, 94%. And so again, you can't just sit there and say, oh, the data's wrong. 5 of us got together, international scientists, American, 2 people from Canada, 1 from Italy, I forget what the 5th one's from. Oh, Germany. We started by writing to the WHO saying, you've got a publication that your name's on that is incorrect, and here's the data. Well, we'll make a correction in the next volume. We'll change the sentence. Well, the next volume came out and it wasn't changed. So we wrote again and we said, you really ought to put out, an errata, or you shouldn't really be publishing this, and the people you're using are well known to be fronts for industry. We took it all the way up to the director of the WHO. Nothing got done, and then we finally published a paper, 5 of us, having written a series of letters, and called them out and put it into the scientific literature that the WHO was now beholden to these industry-oriented doctors, and that their statements were truly wrong and false. So, there's no organization, I think, that doesn't have the possibility of being corrupted in some way or another. That said, I still think that education and using international agencies through the United Nations to disseminate information is important, but it's not sufficient. It's necessary, but not sufficient. You still have to, in Colombia, where I'm doing some work in South America, 5 years ago, they put a ban on asbestos. They were even going to leave their mine open and sell it out of the country. And the very week that the bill came up, I was in South America. I talked to the legislators, and I simply put to them, like I did with Johnson & Johnson, I said, fine, you're going to protect all the Colombians from any new exposure to asbestos, but are you going to sell a cancer-causing agent out of the country and kill other people? Is that what you want to be known for? The bill got passed. They even shut the mine down. So, but that was 5 years ago, and they were supposed to put out regulations for handling millions of tons of asbestos that was already in place. The legacy, in America alone, we have probably more than 25 million tons of asbestos in buildings all over the United States, a million buildings at least. And you have to follow through and make sure that regulations get put in place and administered properly. They've never put the regulations in place to deal with what the law said they should have done within 2 years. And I'm sure you have plenty of situations like that here in India where you have regulations where there's no follow-up.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
The use of asbestos is not banned in India. We are using asbestos. And there is another thing when we are talking about the international agencies. You see, United Nations announces World Environment Day from 1972. Every year we observe World Environment Day. And several times the topic was against plastics. It's there. I was talking at NIHS and at Columbia University, and the water was in plastic bottles. They said they recycle. How about that? So we have to follow, not the only agencies. We need education. That's what we were talking about.
The biggest
thing about that.
Sorry. The biggest thing is that what you said is plasticizer plastics. The leaching out we cannot avoid it. It is being used. Here is admitting. But in India, the PVC is not PVC pipes, which is made in the houses for water supply and pipes. It is not banned here. US it is banned. But it is made up of all the EDC chemicals, bisphenol and all. And it is water supply through it and leaching out. So we are slowly poisoned. They are also. And somebody develops cancer or something, so that I am following the very scent life and eating very vegetarian and very careful about my life, do exercise, and then why would I develop cancer? So that is the thing they do not know. Even it was told in the beginning that the Johnson powders and all, but all the cosmetics, they are in the plastics, and plastic is leaching out, including your lipsticks and many other things. So they are on their plasticizers. We know, we have done some preliminary study. It is called EDC, endocrine disrupting chemicals. So they disturb the endocrine, the hormones, and these hormones, steroid hormones, are responsible for the cancer, the breast cancer and all. So there are many things that we know and we are knowingly using without any, we cannot do anything about it. So like plastic bottles, water and all.
These companies are smart, they say BPA free.
Yeah. So anyhow, but it is going time now to conclude. And if you have anything specific, just one or two person, if you have anything project that you want to collaborate, just tell. And but later on you can have a more discussion and have a connection. And Dr. Salmurthy asked, so when we wanted some interaction, so not question, but just if you think of something to collaborate with him, and in the field of environmental and the public health or in this occupational health, that's a great thing.
My email, first of all, you can always find it at the Drexel website. Okay, but it's very simple. It's my three initials, ALF, the number 13 at drexel.edu. And so, if I hear from Amity, I know it will be one of you that will be in touch. And
so you want to say?
Yeah, just very briefly. So you have emphasized today on the migration induced by climate change and extreme weather, right? Across the globe, it's happening. On the reverse, I would just want to apprise you that we recently concluded a study and we've communicated it now. So we've seen these people who are migrating due to climate change factors and extreme weather are actually moving to urban areas which they are actually not risk-free, but they are actually moving to more high-risk zones where they're getting more exposure to air pollution and urban heat events and all. So we've just concluded that with census data and yeah. So.
Your point is well taken. For the first time in history, 3 or 4 years ago, they announced that half the world's population now lives in cities, which had never occurred before. And again, if you look back to what happened, the Industrial Revolution, when people moved to cities and got more congested, things didn't get better for them health-wise, they got worse. And that's not necessarily a good trend. And the comment, I'm delighted to know that there's now 21 schools of public health. And it's growing, and India certainly needs that. But again, a cautionary tale. This is the acute phase. Okay, what's the long-term prospect? When I went into the field 50 years ago, there were 19 training programs in occupational medicine. Between government support mostly, but even some private organizations put monies up to train students. We rose to 44 programs to train occupational physicians. We're now back down to 19.
Sustainability.
It has to be sustained.
Sustainability.
Okay. Dr. Salmurthy, please.
Thank you, Dr. Das. Dr. Frank, it has been really a very illuminating lecture and discussion. I have certain thoughts to share for starting the collaboration with you all in a big way, because you are already an honorary professor, so hence you are an Amitian. The first thing, Amity Institute of Public Health can start an awareness campaign for Viksit Bharat, Environment and Health for Viksit Bharat. Through our ASCO, you can make some short films of, let's say, 1 minute, half a minute, 2 minutes maximum. And then these short films can be put in digital platforms, schools, and also universities, colleges. So one mission for Amity Institute of Public Health is to create awareness through all cross-section of our society. Because this is very important. We have to bring a transformation and behavioral change. So one task. The second task could be that, he can be a co-supervisor in any of the program where climate and human health is related. So this could be another. So look at your PhDs, because you have enrolled some new scholars right now. So anything where you feel he can be an external co-supervisor from abroad. So please incorporate him, because this would be an action. So we would like to follow goodwill. We'll follow it up with all of you from ASTIF. And so that we have at least a few of the co-supervisor thesis coming out collaboratively, where there will be joint publications between Frank Arthur and your Amity universities and also your own scholars. So this could be a second, which you can immediately implement, because you have the PhD admission which has been done. Then you can also look at some mission mode projects. Doing small projects is okay. But then if you do it in an integrated manner, so involving molecular mechanism, preventive aspects, prophylactic aspects from occupational health. So let us at least think of one mission more impactful R&D, collaborative R&D program to emerge. So maybe after lunch or during lunch, you can discuss what could be the area in which this joint collaborative R&D can be started. The fourth aspect could be master's dissertation. Some of your students, the master's students, MTech, MSc, MS students who would be going for master's last semester dissertation work, can we consider him and his institution as the one? So this could be also implemented by you. So encourage, promote. In environmental health, you have environmental science faculty sitting there and biotechnology students, biotechnology professors sitting there. So please look at that. The last part would be Amity. We have in the Global Research Hub in our US campus, the Long Island campus. So can we look at in the one of the vertical there we are creating is the sustainability. In addition to the other domains, one vertical in our Long Island campus of Amity Global Research Hub is on sustainability. So how do we connect with you in this area? Maybe during lunch, Das and other colleagues can discuss. And then maybe we'll be looking forward to starting something low-lying fruit where you can immediately start some collaboration. Then further you keep expanding and also the furthering the collaboration further. So thank you so much, Dr. Frank Arthur. I'm sorry I'm unable to be there in person, but every word you spoke, every word my colleague spoke, I listened to this. And then Dr. Gopal Bhushan, a few words from you because you brought him. This whole coordination with goodwill was done. So can you
deliver the thanks to the
yes, and also goodwill Coca, who was on ground. She was bringing the right people for this meeting. And thank you so much, Goodwill, for this wonderful arrangement. You brought the right people.
Thank you very much, Dr. Selvamurthy. Very nicely summarized and what is the immediate program or the activity we can take up with Professor Arthur. So that's a great thing that 4 or 5 aspects that you said. But that awareness program is it is good to make a film and it can be sent everywhere so that will create a good our ASCO is there and we can make that easily and that will create a good awareness program and it will create not only awareness program from the effects of these ill effects of the pollutions and other things, but environmental health, but also the Amity's activity on that and Amity's name and fame that is will be there. Co-supervisor, mission mode project and the master dissertation, these are always we ask for and then that is every faculty knows and they will, I think they will have the address and all, email and they can connect and after lunch, those who are interested can have the close discussion and to develop a project and particularly from the public health, I think Dr. Pallavi, she has joined new. So she has in the public health and because she is public health in a different area. That is environment and climate change. So because specifically we recruited her. She was in IIT. So she is a very young and energetic. She has already have collaborations with the Japan and US. Nice. So he is very much, that is the area, is the public health, is very much coincide with this today's discussion. So Pallavi, you can look after, see that how you can collaborate. That will be great. And others also, yes. So
I had some idea, I just wanted to speak.
Yeah, another Pallavi.
Another Pallavi. Medicine.
So just briefly you can share.
Just very quickly, because use of talc has been connected with ovarian cancer in females. And that what asbestos presents in talc. So what I was thinking that if we can collect all kind of talc that is marketed in India, and we can check for the level of asbestos, That would be kind of a public health initiative. I don't know if such studies.
No, that is only not ovarian cancer, it is also breast cancer. Breast ovarian cancer.
Carcinogen.
We sort of did that study already a little bit. If you write to me, I'll send you a copy of the paper that I did.
But Indian scenario, it is very important.
We had 13 Indian talc samples. 7 of them were heavily contaminated with asbestos. Not all of them, but 7 out of the 13. So it's out there. The one other suggestion that I have is if you've got a press office here at Amity, you make yourself available to the TV press, to the printed word, and then whenever there's an environmental issue, somebody should contact Amity and get a professor to talk about these issues. You know, I may teach a few thousand students in my career. If I give a press interview that makes it onto the radio, that's 200,000 or 300,000 people that day.
That is very important. So because we are a country of tropical country and we have a very big summer. So using talc is it's a requirement.
Yes.
Especially for our
Write to me, I'll send you that paper and then maybe we can do some other studies. But you also have to have the right laboratory to do the analysis.
Absolutely, that's what
And
I was asking.
there's no lab that I know of in India right now that can do that.
That's why we need collaboration.
Collaboration, I got the lab.
Yeah, Dr. Goodwill, you can also arrange an interaction with Savita Mehta, our media.
To call after lunch to have an interview with him so that it can be propagated.
And also our ASCO community radio. He can just speak for a couple of minutes. You can arrange that also, so that his message will go everywhere. And maybe Vipin also can put it on our digital platform, which will reach, his message will reach to all Indians and global community.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And now we come to an end. And I will now many thanks and to you, Professor Frank and Professor Roman. And yes, Roman, I know. And all the participants and my esteemed colleagues. And now I hand over to
just before that, I just want to know, last time we met, there was...
Comments and thanks.
The last time we met, there was discussion on the pending MOU. You said that the guy has taken over and probably you would speak to him. Right.
We already have an MOU.
So but that probably needed
it's old, it needs to be.
So that would help us facilitate us in our online.
I did have some preliminary discussions with the head of our global activities, and I'll go back now that I have some real.
Trust here. So that would be nice. And so I thank Dr. Frank and Dr. Kumar for introducing Dr. Frank to us and his presence here and his very enlightening talk. And I, on behalf of Amity, on behalf of our president and Dr. Salamurthy, and for the faculty here, thank you profusely and for your beautiful talk and the kind of excitement you have generated in the young faculty. And all the 4-5 points which were given by Dr. Salamurthy will be followed up. And we'll coordinate with faculty and you and for some kind of arrangement or for guide to our faculty, our thesis students. I also thank Dr. Raja Singh, who is probably not new to Amity, probably, but is new to Amity in the sense that he's been here for the first time. So you are most welcome to come anytime you want, be our guest. And we'll learn a lot with you, and probably our faculty may also be benefited with your presence and your exposure to being close to Dr. Frank. So on behalf of everyone, I thank once again to you and for your visit. I hope your just the days in Delhi would be, or India would be as productive as always been. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's wait for each other. Word of the felicitant. Felicitation. It's Indian.
Who's traditional India?
Sir. So much. First time.
चांदी की ईद हमें दे रहे हैं अच्छा बहुत शुक्रिया
आप अमितियंस हैं हमारा अमिति कहीं we consider as Amitiyans.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
It's okay. It's okay.
They won't understand.
This is the silver plate. We give me silver plate.
Okay.
And to you?
Not so silver.
क्या हुआ है